Where it gets a little tricky with Philly, similar to like the Ravens and stuff, it's the explosive runs that now kind of are more like a pass. So that's the element where, yes, playing from a lead would certainly help, and you just can't let Saquon bust off the big ones. If he's going to 4 or 5 yard you to death, you can kind of live with that, make him go the long way. But when they have the explosive pass and the explosive run, it just becomes so hard to defend for really anybody in the league.
We saw in the first half, they're building a wall for Darnold. He looks left, then he comes back right. Look at the route. Addison, this is a little okey doke. Gets him just to Bullard to settle his feet.
Welcome to the NFL on Fox podcast, presented by Verizon, the NFL powered by Verizon 5G. I am your host, Dave Helman, and I feel alive, which I wasn't sure we were going to get there. It was a long holiday week. Hope it was safe and productive for you and yours. But my goodness, when the week starts on Wednesday, there's football Christmas. And then on Thursday, you got a Saturday triple header. You got a whole Sunday. It's a lot to keep track of. But leave it to the NFL. And this is how it always works. By the time we get here to Monday morning, to the recap episode, we've watched so much good football, so many crazy outcomes. I'm ready. I'm ready for week 18. I'm ready to see how this all ends. One more week of games before we have the playoff picture. I hope you're as energized as I am. I hope your team is still alive. If you haven't claimed a playoff spot yet, never fear. There's a couple more spots. It's not quite as wide open as we might have guessed earlier in the season, but man, what a week. We had teams punching their playoff tickets. We had scenarios to consider. We were doing mental math on tiebreakers. We were weighing the pros and cons of going for 2. The Green Bay Packers, you might have heard Tom Brady and Kevin Burkhardt just on the call, staging another late comeback against the Vikings. It's all too much. It was such a fun weekend, a holiday week of NFL football. It's a lot to get to. I'm just going to warn you right now. We've got scenarios to go over. We've got seeding conversations. If that, then when, maybe if, but what? But we will make sense of it all in the end. I promise you. We're going to dive into our Sunday 6 as we always do. The 6 big things we think you need to know coming out of the weekend. Big games, big performances. What the playoff picture looks like. That's what a lot of the show is going to be, is just sorting through everything, getting you ready for week 18. Several records set in week 17. This rookie class continues to outdo itself. Quarterbacks, receivers, tight ends, you name it. It's just shaping up to be a really special rookie class. We're going to talk about that as well. Like I said, it's a lot, so we might as well just jump into it. Let's start the Sunday 6 with America's game of the week. Late window on Sunday. Packers at Vikings. And honestly, with 2 Christmas games, 3 Saturday games, this was the big game on Sunday. And in the end, didn't look like it at first, but in the end, it delivered the goods. Vikings raced out to a big lead. They got comfortable, and then they watched as the Packers stage a furious rally. In the final 10 minutes of the game, they turned a lopsided one into a nail biter. Vikings ultimately pull away with a 2-point win. Quick, anybody, everybody, did I just describe Sunday, week 17? Or did I just describe week 4 back at Lambeau Field when the exact same game played out between these two teams? All the way back then, it was 31-29. On Sunday, it's 27-25 in favor of Minnesota, but very rarely are you going to see the almost exact same script play out between two teams in the same season. Although I want to highlight one thing, because if there's one key difference, it was the way the Vikings iced this game. I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was poetic. I thought it was football at its finest, because it was less dramatic in week 4. Back then, all Minnesota had to do was recover an onside kick and the game was over. Green Bay scored with with less than a minute to play. You just recover an onside kick and you get out of there. But on Sunday, Green Bay scored with 2 minutes and 18 seconds to play. So all of their timeouts available, plus the 2-minute warning. Minnesota had to earn this win. If you call 3 runs into the line of scrimmage and punt, you are going to lose to Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love and the Packers. Minnesota had to earn it, and they did in the most ballsy way possible, in my opinion. Kevin O'Connell, head coach of the Vikings, serious contender for NFL Coach of the Year, and these are the types of reasons why. You start the final drive of this game out with a pass in the flat to C.J. Ham. Sure, Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison play on this team, T.J. Hawkinson, but no, we're going to target the fullback for 13 yards and a first down. That gets us to the 2-minute warning. From there, sure, you call a run. You force the Packers to burn their timeout. It gets stuffed. You're facing 2nd and long. Again, Green Bay with 2 timeouts. If you don't play this somewhat aggressively, you're probably going to regret it. From there, we get Sam Darnold on the run, firing a laser, a high difficulty throw into Jordan Jefferson, high velocity, not a lot of separation between Jefferson and his coverage. He picks it up, 9-yard gain. And as if Justin Jefferson wasn't already the best receiver in football, he's also smart enough to get down inbounds, forces the Packers to burn another timeout on a catch that was a hell of a lot harder than it looked. Justin Jefferson, stud in this game, one of the best catches of the year, unfortunately called back by a flag. So there you get to 3rd and 2. Packers with the timeout, game on the line. You can try to run it right up the gut, see what happens, force them to burn a timeout. If they stuff you, you're sweating out one more possession with Jordan Love having the ball. But no. Kevin O'Connell, misdirection one more time. Almost the same play as the one to C.J. Ham, except this time it's Cam Akers leaking into the flat. And let's unpack that for a minute. Cam Akers, the backup running back. All the focus is on Aaron Jones going against his old team. Cam Akers, a role player in this offense, but Kevin O'Connell likes him enough that the Vikings have traded for him twice. They did it a year or 2 ago, and they did it this season. They like the role that he plays well enough to trade for him twice. They target him with the game on the line. They're trying to stay alive to play for the number 1 seed in the NFC. And Akers redeems that faith with a diving catch. Again, a much harder catch than maybe it looks on a stat sheet. Catches it for a 6-yard gain on 3rd and 2. The Vikings get so aggressive with it. They throw 3 out of 4 times. They kneel out the clock. That is your ball game. It's such a microcosm of everything I love about this Vikings team. Aggressive coaches who are willing to make aggressive calls because they trust their players to deliver. And way more often than not, the players hold up their end of the bargain. Sam Darnold is a perfect example of that. Not a perfect day on his part, but he leads the Vikings to 27 points on the day, a couple of missed field goals. Maybe they would have had more. And with that last completion to Akers, he finishes with a season high 377 passing yards to go along with 3 touchdowns. So the guy who signed on for $10 million as an insurance policy is sitting on 4,000 passing yards for the season, 4,100 to be specific, and 35 touchdowns. He's got the Minnesota Vikings at 14-2. He was your Tom Brady LFG player of the game.
Hey guys, today my LFG player of the game, a career day for him and an awesome win, Sam Darnold. Hey, tell me, you guys have been in so many one-score games, right, this season, and I know Coach O'Connell has been in a lot of those. How do you guys have so much confidence that you're going to come through in these one-score games?
First off, Tom, this thing's pretty heavy. This is legit. No, but, you know, we have all the confidence in the world in ourselves. First and foremost, just playing as a team, our defense doing their thing, special teams doing their thing. And as an offense, man, we try to execute to the best of our ability. I felt like we did that at times today. Obviously, there's a ton of ways we can get better. But, yeah, I just feel like we're just going to continue to grind and get better every single week, every single day, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, speaking of a guy that you grind with every single week, describe the feeling of having Justin Jefferson out there and some of those catches that he makes routinely on a weekly basis.
Yeah, he's a pretty good player, man. Playing with that guy's really fun. Obviously, we got J.A., Jordan Addison as well. Speedy, Jalen Naylor made some really good catches. T.J. Hawkinson. I can go on and on about the guys that we have. But yeah, Jets is an amazing player, and I'm very fortunate to have him as a teammate.
Yeah, you sure are. It's tremendous. You guys have great chemistry. Tell me, last thing, do you still feel like you guys, and I know KOC was like, yeah, we're like the little brother, no one pays attention to us. After this win today, going into what you're dealing with next week against the Lions, do you still feel like you guys are under the radar?
No, we're just going to continue to take it one game at a time, Tom. You know how we do. So, that's our mindset. That's been our mindset the entire year. Really, throwing it back to April, man. That was our mindset then. Why change now?
Yeah, spoken so well. You provided great leadership, Sam. It's been a pleasure to cover you today. Love seeing everything that you did out there. Congratulations, and I can't wait to watch next week.
Appreciate it, Tom. Hey, what's LFG stand for?
It's Let's Bleep Go.
Oh, okay. I love it. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you. Great job.
Every game that I broadcast, I award the LFG Player of the Game to that one player who makes me say, let's go.
With all due respect to a very fun fourth quarter in Minneapolis, what really matters here is what comes next. The Vikings survived the Packers, and now we all know what that means for Week 18, a showdown of all showdowns. All of a sudden, the Lions haven't played yet. They still go out to Santa Clara to face the 49ers on Monday night. All of a sudden, it doesn't really matter because the Vikings getting this win means that the winner of Week 18, Vikings at Lions, wins the NFC North, and doesn't just win the NFC North, they get the number 1 seed. I don't want to date this by trying to predict anything too soon, but the schedule makers are going to have some choices to make. 2 teams with 13-plus wins, NFC North on the line, number 1 seed on the line. Whoever loses between Vikings and Lions next week will be a wild card. You start your playoffs on the road rather than getting home field advantage and a week off. The stakes are so high. Cannot wait for that one. It's a theme for Week 17 that, as entertaining as it might have been, it just sets the stage for even better action to come in the season finale. Second item on our Sunday 6 is our Victory Unlocked. It's brought to you by Zillow. Agents, tours, loans, homes, and the Minnesota Vikings might be the biggest winners of Sunday because they are still alive for the number 1 seed. Philadelphia Eagles officially eliminated from number 1 seed consideration, but they are still plenty big winners in their own right. They host the Cowboys early on Sunday and just crush them 41-7 to officially wrap up the NFC East. That loss to Washington kept things interesting for 7 more days. But with a laugher of a win against Dallas, they secure the division, and they are now locked in to the number 2 seed in the NFC. An impressive game all around, and I think the most impressive part is just when you talk about the depth of this Philadelphia roster. We already knew they weren't going to have Jalen Hurts. He's still recovering from the concussion he suffered against Washington. So Kenny Pickett gets the start. Not an inspiring performance, but he goes 10 for 15 for a touchdown. He leads Philly on 3 scoring drives. And when you include a Chauncey Gardner-Johnson pick 6, Kenny Pickett had the Eagles sitting on 24 points early in the third quarter when he injured his ribs and exited. So now you get down to the third quarterback. Tanner McKee comes in, and all he does is complete 3 out of 4 for 54 with 2 touchdowns. Dime touchdown passes, by the way, bullets to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. This one turns into a laugher, and it just goes to show how many playmakers are on this Eagles roster when you can lose not just your starter, but your backup quarterback and still put up 40 points. That's what I had a chance to talk about with Joe Davis and Greg Olsen when I caught up with him after the game. Well, guys, I guess when you clinch the division, you take it any way you can get it, but what does it say about the talent on this roster when you can put up a performance like that with your third quarterback on the field?
Well, we said it coming in, if there's ever a position for a backup quarterback to thrive, it's this one. There's just so much talent on the field still.
Yeah, again, 2 weeks in a row, we've been very clear. This is probably from top to bottom the best roster in football. Now, when it gets to playoff times, we'll see how it all shakes out. But for you to be able to get onto your third quarterback and kind of weather that storm. They have their offensive line. They have probably one of the best skill units in football. And then after a disappointing loss last week, the defense gets right back on track. This was the Philly defense we had seen over that 10-game win streak, and they put it all together at the right time here today at home.
Saquon Barkley goes over 2,000 rushing yards. I'm curious. I mean, maybe this is a question without an answer, but you look at the way he can grind on you and wear a defense down as the game goes. Is the answer to this just to be good enough on offense to keep him off the field? Because otherwise, I'm just not sure how you do it.
Yeah, I think so. So much of run defense is I just can't put you in a position to be able to run the ball at me. But where it gets a little tricky with Philly, similar to like the Ravens and stuff, it's the explosive runs that now kind of are more like a pass. So that's the element where, yes, playing from a lead would certainly help, and you just can't let Saquon bust off the big ones. If he's going to 4 or 5 yard you to death, you can kind of live with that, make him go the long way. But when they have the explosive pass and the explosive run, it just becomes so hard to defend for really anybody in the league.
Eagles rebound from that loss to Washington in style, and they win the NFC East. Guys, I appreciate it as always. Take care.
All right, Dave.
Appreciate it, Dave.
There's no shortage of game balls you can hand out when you crush a rival to clinch the division. I'm just glad Tanner McKee got his. Maybe one of the funniest quirks from this game is that A.J. Brown catches a touchdown from Tanner McKee, his first NFL touchdown. And in the heat of the moment, he's so excited. He launches that thing, I'm watching it right now, into the second deck, realizes his mistake on the sideline. I'm sure he felt terrible about it. Never fear, AJ. That's what the Eagles have Big Dom for. What doesn't Big Dom do? He runs over the sideline. He gets the fan to throw the ball back. AJ eventually winds up trading a signed jersey for the first touchdown. All's well that ends well. It's just that type of day. Like I said, when you score 40 against the Cowboys to clinch the division, AJ Brown had himself a day. Devontae Smith had 2 touchdowns in this game. The good feeling is off the charts. Again, the Eagles are so funny because one week we're debating how much their players like each other and whether they can, get on the same page enough to go on a run. And then you have a game like this. AJ with 3 for 36 and a touchdown. Devontae for 120 and 2 touchdowns. My man gets his signed jersey instead of the Tanner McKee game ball. And yet, with all of that other stuff going on, if we here on the pod are handing out a game ball, it's got to start with Saquon Barkley, who gets himself a game ball figuratively. He also just got the ball literally in this game. Eagles fed him the rock 31 times. That's the highest carry count of his season, and it's tied for the third highest number of his NFL career. It's almost like the Eagles know that he's chasing some milestones, and he repays that with 167 yards. And honestly, what I loved about it, it's not possible to have a quiet 167, but this is what it would look like, I guess. We've seen Saquon Barkley take over games with 68-yard touchdowns, taking it to the house from the logo, chunk play after chunk play. This was not that. Saquon's long on the day was just 23 yards. Again, 31 carries. It was a very workmanlike performance, just 3 explosive runs, but he just kept chipping away. I love that. Every single time he got the ball, even if it wasn't a huge gain, it's 2, it's 4, it's 4, it's 8, it's 11, it's 4, it's 6, it's 23. When you break contain off of right tackle and turn what looked like a small gain into a scoot around the edge up the sideline for 23 yards, he earned every blade of grass he got against the Cowboys. And when it was over, he was sitting on 2,005 rushing yards for the season. He is just the 9th NFL running back to rush for 2,000 or more yards. An absolutely incredible season continues. Still got some work to do, but when he caught up with our Pam Oliver afterward, you could tell it meant a lot to him.
Topping that 2,000-yard mark, how much are you living a dream right now, Saquon?
Yeah, I can't lie. It's amazing. It was fun. It was fun being out there with those guys and to be able to do that. I wouldn't be able to do that with the O-line, the wide receivers, and the tight end. But at the end of the day, the most important thing was to get a win, clinch the division, and Kenny Pickett came up big for us, and Tanner came in and made some big plays.
I wish you could have seen offensive line coach Jeff Stoutland as you ran past him. He was exuberant, just jubilant. That just speaks to the offensive line and the job that they've done. Put that in perspective for us.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, my name would be the one that goes across with 2,000. But like I said, you can't do it with those guys. And that's something that we said from the beginning. We want to do something special. And, they did all the work. I just followed them, and they made me look a lot better.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Saquon signed in Philly for 3 years, $37.5 million. And when you factor in the price, the profile of Saquon Barkley, the fact that he was coming down the highway from New York to play for a division rival, the expectations were high. Safe to say, they've been met and then some. Obviously, I'm not going to try to predict how the playoffs go here, but regardless, he has delivered so much on the potential. In your wildest dreams, Eagles fans, I don't think you would have thought he'd be sitting on 2,000 yards with 1 week still to go. And now the question is, how much further does he go if he goes anywhere at all in this regular season? Saquon needs 101 yards against the Giants, ironically, in the season finale to set the NFL rushing record that Eric Dickerson has held since 1984. The problem is, that's about the only reason why Saquon Barkley would play in this game. I said it earlier, but with 13 wins and with Minnesota beating Green Bay, Philly's locked in on the 2 seed. They can't get the 1. They can't fall further than 2. There's not a ton of incentive to play your stars in this season finale against the New York Giants, unless it means that much to you for Saquon to set the record. And I'm going to step out on a limb. I think he can, and I think that he would. Saquon has rushed for more than 101 yards in 11 of Philly's games this season against a Giants team that I know they won Sunday. We'll get to that later on the show. But a Giants team that's given up plenty of rushing yards, that doesn't have anything to play for themselves, it's doable. It's just the question of why would you do it? I think the Eagles are likely to sit their starters, but history being so close, you can taste it. Maybe that gives this a little bit of intrigue. On top of that, Jalen Hurts didn't play this week. Do you want him going into the playoffs with 2 weeks off, assuming he's available? Maybe the powers that be in Philly decide to give Jalen and Saquon a few series to make sure they're primed and ready for the postseason. I lean toward probably not, though. I think having those guys healthy is probably more important than whatever you might attain in this final game. But it sure is intriguing. 101 yards shy of NFL history, of one of the most highly regarded records in football. And even the fact that it's a conversation we're having just goes to show how great of a signing this was, delivering on the expectations and then some. The third item on our Sunday 6 is a game so good it's settled multiple places in the NFC playoffs. And if that sounds confusing, it won't by the time we're done. Had a lot of variables heading into Sunday of Week 17. We knew a lot of them would get answered Sunday night when the Commanders played host to the Atlanta Falcons. Helped us out even more than we might have thought. Let's get into it. First of all, what a game. Jaden Daniels and Zach Ertz walk off the Falcons in overtime. The Commanders are officially a wild card. They make their first playoff trip since 2020. And what a game of swings this was. Just like a pendulum, the way the momentum seemed to go back and forth. Washington, even though they were favored at home, they fall behind 17-7 at halftime. It's looking like this is going to be Michael Penix's announcement to the league that he's here. And by the way, he still is, even in defeat. Very impressive from a guy making his second career start on the road against a playoff team. I digress. The Commanders wake up after halftime. They surge to a 24-17 lead with just 4 minutes to play. It's looking like this won't even be that dramatic until Penix answered Jaden Daniels' heroics with his own. He leads the Falcons downfield narrowly avoids disaster. It looked like the Falcons were going to falcon a fumbled snap, losing however many yards that was, 20 in a crucial goal-to-go situation. No, Penix gets it all back. He finds Kyle Pitts for a game-tying touchdown, 1:19 to play, and that was the beginning. That was the beginning of the drama when they tied the game with 1:19 to play. Commanders, plenty of time, plenty of timeouts to work with in regulation. They can go down and win. Not so fast. A rare 3 and out. This is a team that almost never goes 3 and out. 6th fewest in the NFL on the year. They go 3 and out. They leave the Falcons way too much time to win the game in regulation themselves. Except maybe Raheem Morris didn't realize how much time he had. Atlanta had multiple timeouts and a minute to play. They botched the clock situation. Raheem Morris lets 20 seconds tick off the clock in the final minute. Falcons could have had 30 some odd seconds and plenty of opportunities to move close, but they let the clock run, and eventually a DPI forces Atlanta to settle for a 56-yard field goal attempt. They just didn't have time to get any closer. Now remember, Riley Patterson is in for their injured kicker, Younghoe Koo, who could definitely drill a 56-yard field goal, by the way. Riley Patterson, no disrespect to the guy, it's a full 5 yards short, didn't come close, and we go to overtime where the number 2 overall pick in the draft does his thing. Jaden Daniels did not let Atlanta touch the ball in overtime. 6 carries for 42 yards in the extra period, 5 of 5 passing for 32 yards, and the walk-off to Zach Ertz, breathless, riveting, the very best of what the NFL is supposed to be. That's why they flexed this into prime time. 2 rookies, 2 college stars from a year ago showing their stuff on the big stage. It's a shame Penix has to take the L because he played phenomenally. Again, for a guy playing his second game. But wow, Jaden Daniels is the story here. The first rookie quarterback in NFL history with 10 or more wins, 30-plus touchdowns, and 4,000-plus total yards. That's a mouthful of stats. He's the 5th rookie quarterback since 1950 and the first since Andrew Luck in 2012 to have 10-plus point comebacks in back-to-back weeks. Remember, he just did this against Philly. This is what he's doing for an encore. It's incredible. Washington, first playoff trip since 2020. First 11-win season since 1991 when this was an organization people still associated with the Super Bowl. And maybe they still will, because this does not look like a team that you want to play in a one-off setting. Not when Jaden Daniels can skirt around your best pressure and either run for 20 or find a wide open guy streaking across the field. This team is dangerous, and their rookie quarterback might be the most poised guy on the entire field. He gets the Commanders into the playoffs. And if that wasn't exciting enough for Washington, I'm going to guess one of their old employees, Sean McVay, might have an edible arrangement arriving at their facility on Monday morning, because it was such a good win. Like I said, it got another team into the playoffs. The LA Rams officially clinch a playoff spot. They clinched the NFC West title. I should give them their full credit. They clinched their division off the strength of this win because of strength of victory tiebreakers needed to assure that they stay ahead of Seattle. If that sounds Greek to you, I promise it's not that scary. Let's break it down. At 10-6, the Rams were 1 game ahead of 9-7 Seattle. Unfortunately for Seattle, the Rams beat them up at their place earlier this year in overtime. They're a game ahead of them in the division, so Seattle can't pass them in the division record, even with a win next week. They have the same record in common games. He's got a game on them in conference games. So no matter how you slice it, even if Seattle beats LA next week here at SoFi Stadium, they're tied, and that sends it to something called strength of victory. In this very rare scenario, it all comes down to the combined record of the teams that you've beaten. Every game that the teams you've beaten wins looks better on your resume, so to speak. So the Rams knew on Saturday night after they beat Arizona, if they got wins from 3 of the 5 of Buffalo, Cleveland, Minnesota, Washington, or San Francisco, they'd clinch the tiebreaker. I know it's a mouthful. Just bear with me. Buffalo wins early on Sunday. Minnesota beats Green Bay. And then Washington delivers them that third crucial win that they needed. It sealed the deal. And that's especially crazy when you think of how narrow the Rams' own win was on Saturday night. Not the most memorable game of this 2024 season, but the ending sure was dramatic. Rams clinging to a 13-9 lead with less than a minute to play. Cardinals driving to their 5-yard line. They're going to have a chance to throw into the end zone and beat the Rams, opening the door for Seattle to steal the division in Week 18. But no, Kyler Murray and Trey McBride, they'd been so good all night. Miscommunication, Kyler's pass bounces off Trey's helmet and into the air, where Akello Witherspoon grabs it and picks it off at the pylon. An end zone pick with less than a minute to play. Had it fallen incomplete, Arizona would have had 3 more chances from the 5-yard line to steal that win. And if it had happened, we would be playing an NFC West championship game on Sunday. Rams, Seahawks, must-see TV. Instead, Akello Witherspoon will be remembered by Rams fans forever, and the weirdest tiebreaker imaginable sends the Rams into the playoffs. Yeah, if I were Sean McVay, edible arrangement, flowers, maybe some chocolates for those guys to have on Monday to celebrate their win. I don't know. Sean, it's the least you could do. So here we are, 1 week to play in the NFC, and now officially there's just one playoff spot up for grabs. And after Atlanta's loss, it's the NFC South title. Tampa Bay thought they blew it last week against Dallas. They lose that game on Sunday night. They come back. Tampa crushes Carolina early on Sunday, 48-14 behind a supernova day from Baker Mayfield. I mean, I'm talking Baker threw as many touchdowns as he did incompletions, 5-5 apiece. Bucs, 551 yards of offense. Starters wearing baseball hats with 10 minutes to play. And then they sat back. How stressful must that have been? But they sat back and watched Sunday Night Football and let the Commanders push them back into the lead in the NFC South. So we know Vikings, Eagles, Rams, Lions, Commanders, Packers into the playoffs. We don't know the seeding, but the only thing that's still up for grabs is the NFC South title. If the Bucs beat the Saints next week, they're in. If the Bucs lose to the Saints, it opens the door for the Falcons, who could then steal it back if they beat the Carolina Panthers. Wow. Like I said, it all looks pretty clear. I don't remember a year where we've known this much about the playoff picture, still with 1 week of games to play. But we got our NFC South title game. No, not title game. We've got our NFC South contenders on Sunday, and everybody else is just waiting to see the seeding. And obviously, no better headline grabber than the game we just found out will be our Sunday Night Football finale. Last regular season game of the season. Vikings at Lions. Winner gets the number 1 seed. Loser gets a wild card trip. But hey, at least it's to either LA, Tampa, or Atlanta. So it'll be warm, I guess. The fourth item on our Sunday 6 is that the AFC playoff picture came into clearer focus this weekend. And let's start with the latest and the most surprising development among those teams that are still fighting for playoff spots. The Indianapolis Colts clinging to their playoff hopes. They had the easiest strength of schedule down the stretch. They just had to beat some bad teams and they would be in the mix. They went to the Meadowlands against the New York Giants, who hadn't won a home game all year long. They didn't just lose. They got 40 burgered. They let the New York Giants put up almost 50 points. The Giants down the Colts 45-33. Whole lot of reasons for those guys to be excited. They avoid going winless at home. They finally score 30 points. They were one of the few teams in the league that hadn't done it. They hadn't even scored 30 this year, and they jump right to 45. It's their highest point total since 2015. And like I said, they ruined somebody else's year in the process. The Colts at 7-8, they needed a win here. They needed a win next week. They needed a loss from Denver. We can get into all of that later, because guess what? For the Colts purposes, it's irrelevant. They're out of there. They are no more after the Giants down them with a 300-yard, 5-touchdown performance from Drew Lock, of all people. And, a heck of a nice day from that rookie wide receiver, Malik Neighbors, 170 yards and 2 touchdowns from their top 10 pick. An offensive explosion we just haven't seen in New York in quite a minute, and it ends the Colts' playoff chances. I had a chance to talk to Kenny Albert and Jonathan Vilma, who were on the call here, and we'll get into it. It's such an interesting topic because, as you know, if you're a Giants fan, this is a win that changes your draft positioning for the worst. But like I talked about with Kenny and JV, don't tell that to anybody inside the actual locker room in New York. Well, guys, you touched on it a lot during your broadcast. And look, people on the outside are going to talk a lot about draft positioning and all that good stuff. But this is a Giants team that hadn't won since October 6th. How good must it feel to finally, get that victory feeling in the locker room after a game like this?
10 straight losses overall, Dave. They had not won at home all season. And, Jonathan, we did talk about it throughout the broadcast from a player's perspective, a coach's perspective. You don't care about the draft pick. You want to win.
Yeah, you basically tune out all the outside noise, and you just worry about wanting to win. I touched on it earlier about being a competitor, right? It doesn't matter where you line me up. I want to go out there. I want to win. I don't care who's in front of me, who the opponent is. It's about winning. And so far, it didn't happen for the Giants, right? 10 straight losses, but today they got it done. So congratulations to that team and to those coaches.
Not a great season if you're a Giants fan, but if you're looking for optimism, it's easy to start with this guy, Malik Neighbors. Am I right?
That's an understatement, right, Kenny? I mean, Malik Neighbors, he is all that they hoped he would be when they drafted him. He is as good as they come in the passing game. He also blocks as well. You can talk about a guy that goes deep. He goes intermediate. He takes wide receiver screens to the house. I mean, he's a guy you can build on. So I'm really looking at this Giants offense, regardless of who the quarterback is. They have to understand that you can get more pieces. Doesn't have to be the phenom quarterback. You get more pieces and you make sure you distribute to a Tyrone Tracy, to a Malik Neighbors. You're going to have success offensively.
Really fun performance for the New York Giants. They finally get a win at home. Guys, this was a fun one. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon.
Certainly was. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
A few hours after the Colts blew it, the Miami Dolphins did what they could not. They kept their season alive till the final weekend. They go up to Cleveland. They beat the Browns 20-3. Not a game I really hope you were watching closely. If you're a diehard Dolphins fan, fine. But otherwise, one we can probably gently move past. Although, shout out to Snoop Huntley. Honestly, a very impressive performance backing up. Granted, when you're going against a Cleveland offense led by Dorian Thompson-Robinson, didn't look like much of a threat, fine. But we've seen how absolutely toothless the Dolphins can look without Tua Tagovailoa. They downgraded him to doubtful over the weekend. He didn't play. Huntley goes 22 of 26, 225 and a touchdown, and runs for another 52 and a touchdown. All in all, a really great day. This was a team that struggled to score more than 14 points when Tua was out hurt. They get to 20. I'm not trying to convince anybody it's the win of the year, but a nice performance from your backup for a change. And the Dolphins keep their season alive till the final weekend. I just want to say for the record, though, miss me with the idea that the Dolphins won a cold weather game. It was 60 in Cleveland for this game. Yes, it was rainy. It did not look particularly fun, but this is still not what we're talking about when we say we want to see the Dolphins win in the elements. I don't think this counts. Regardless, they keep their season alive until next weekend. If they beat the New York Jets, they've got a shot. And based on the way the Jets looked in our last game in this segment, that's completely possible. The Jets had a chance to play spoiler on the Buffalo Bills a little bit. Nothing doing. Not happening. The Bills rout the Jets 40-14. It was looking like a shutout until the Bills pulled the starters in the fourth quarter. Josh Allen, 3 total touchdowns on the day, 2 passing, 1 rushing. Got everybody involved. Amari Cooper showed back up for the first time in a little while. Keon Coleman had a sick touchdown. Spreading the ball all around. James Cook, another nice day on his part. The Bills just looking like a well-rounded team. And with the win, much like the Eagles, they are now just locked in. They are the 2 seed in the AFC. They cannot go up. They cannot go down. And so I'm left wondering, much like Saquon Barkley, there's no milestone, there's no record for Josh Allen to chase. But as one of the front runners for NFL MVP, I'm curious if this was the last we've seen of him until the playoffs. Logic would say yes. Logic says you protect your star quarterback with the postseason on the horizon. But with Lamar Jackson needing to play next week, maybe. And again, the whole rest versus rust thing, maybe you give Josh Allen a quarter. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud as we record this. I'm going to guess no. I'm going to guess we've seen the last of Josh Allen. But what does that mean for the MVP race if Lamar Jackson plays one more week and Josh Allen doesn't? These are problems I'm guessing the voters will have to parse through, because I think with this very impressive performance behind us and the Bills' playoff standing locked in, I think we've probably seen the last of number 17 until they get to the playoffs. Now, we've tackled all of the results from Sunday. Like I said, the picture is coming into clear focus. So with that in mind, let's jump into, in our next item on the Sunday Six, just what we're looking at in the AFC with one more week to play. Might not be quite as simple as the NFC, but it looks fairly straightforward, and let's just jump into it at the top. For starters, we've probably seen the last of the Chiefs starters. They played one of their best games of the season on Christmas. They beat Pittsburgh 29-10 to lock up the number 1 seed in the AFC. Home field advantage runs through Arrowhead, just as we all figured after a year of wringing our hands, wondering what's wrong with the Chiefs. They have the best record. They are guaranteed the best record of the Patrick Mahomes era, 15-2 at worst. And oh, by the way, everybody's getting healthier. Everybody's rounding into form with a bye week, not to mention the luxury of not having to care about the season finale against the Denver Broncos. It's completely up to them how hard they try, who plays against the Broncos. And that does matter, because that game could have a huge impact on other playoff contenders. We'll get to that in a second. We touched on the Bills already. They are locked in as the 2 seed after beating the Jets. So that's our top 2 already taken care of. The Ravens also winning in style on Christmas Day to move into first place in the AFC North, 31-2. Houston Texans looked like they forgot to show up. Looked a little, maybe they were preoccupied with Christmas. I don't know. It was a rough showing from Houston, which highlights how clear the playoff picture is, by the way. Houston locked in as the AFC's number 4 seed. Benefits of playing in the worst division in the sport. The Texans started 6-2. They have since gone 3-5, and 9 out of 10 times, that's a recipe for losing your playoff spot at the buzzer. Houston locked up the AFC South 2 weeks ago. A very nice season. If you're going to struggle, and look, it's been a rough month and a half for Houston, but if you're going to struggle like this down the stretch, they picked a good year to do it, because this very same type of play cost the Jaguars just last year to Houston's benefit. Indianapolis not willing to take advantage of that. Houston locked in as the 4 seed. We can also shout out the LA Chargers. Big win and end game against New England. They made easy work of it, 40-7. And by doing so, Jim Harbaugh's guys have clinched a playoff spot and assured themselves they can't be worse than number 6. They could climb as high as 5, but they will not be the 7 seed, 5 or 6, depending on how this goes. And so much could change based on the volatility, the phenomenal play of the best game of the weekend, in my opinion. Even knowing what Washington and Atlanta did, even knowing that Green Bay made it interesting late, game of the weekend, Cincinnati Bengals keeping themselves part of this conversation in overtime against Denver makes the race for the number 7 seed so interesting in week 18. And look, I don't trust that NFL MVP voters are going to vote for the quarterback of an 8-8 team. I need to see that happen before I believe it. There's just too much precedent that says winning is too important. But Joe Burrow is deserving of consideration for the award. And as other people have pointed out, the Bengals' mediocre record is evidence of just how valuable this guy is. He's the only thing standing between them and being a complete afterthought. 4,600 passing yards, 42 touchdowns. Saturday against Denver, as well as he's played all year, I thought was his crowning achievement. My guy got sacked 7 times and hit 15. Denver's pass rush teed off on him, and he still threw for 412 yards, scored 4 total touchdowns. Just a phenomenal performance and phenomenal resiliency from Cincinnati, the way they had to bounce back. Joe scores on a quarterback sneak to go up in the final minute. The Bengals blow that. Denver ties the game to send it to overtime. Cincy drives into position for a walk-off field goal in overtime. They blow that when Cade York donks the field goal, doinks it right off the goalpost. Looked all but over, but they bounce back enough to force a Denver punt in overtime. And Joe says, let's stop playing around. Let's score a touchdown. T. Higgins, back-to-back dimes to put the game away. T. Higgins, by the way, 11 catches, 131, and 3 touchdowns. Somebody's going to make this man very highly paid, even if it's not the Cincinnati Bengals, even if the Bengals decide they don't want to. Cincinnati sending a reminder to a national TV audience about just how disgusting this offense is and just how good Joe Burrow can be, how dangerous they can be if they're getting even serviceable play out of their defense. We're not even going to say good because it hasn't been good all year, but if they get serviceable play out of their defense, not a team you want to play. And of course, the fun wrinkle is they left it way too late to have their fate in their hands. Obviously, they need a lot of help to make the playoffs. And let's get into it now. Where does that leave us? 6 of the 7 AFC playoff spots are spoken for. 3 of the 4 divisions have been decided. So what are we looking at in week 18? For starters, the AFC North title, which will be decided on Saturday because the NFL scheduling geniuses. Browns, Ravens, and Steelers, Bengals, both happening on Saturday. The Ravens have the lead. All they have to do is beat Cleveland, and they win the AFC North and get the home playoff game. But if they fail to do that, and let's be honest, stranger things have happened with the Baltimore Ravens. If the Browns manage to beat Baltimore, that opens the door for Pittsburgh to win the AFC North by beating Cincinnati. So somebody will win that division on Saturday, and that leaves the biggest unknown with the most amount of variables as the number 7 seed. Denver, even with the loss to Cincinnati, they're in pole position. All they got to do is beat Kansas City, a Kansas City team that you got to imagine is resting its starters on Sunday, and they're in. Can't imagine we're going to see a lot of Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce or Chris Jones. I'm not trying to play Trent McDuffie in this game if I'm the Chiefs. Give your offensive linemen some time off. Joe Tooney's been saving your butt over at left tackle for the better part of a month. Give him a week off. I'm not playing anybody of consequence if I'm Kansas City. And so a fairly straightforward task if you're the Broncos. Beat the Chiefs B team and you're into the playoffs. But here's where it gets fun. If for some reason the Broncos lose, the Dolphins can steal the 7th seed. They got that win against the Browns on Sunday. All they have to do is beat the Jets, and they're in. Miami did not have Tua Tagovailoa on Sunday. They still managed to win that game. We'll keep an eye on Tua. No idea if he'll be available as of yet, but Miami going against Aaron Rodgers for a chance to steal a playoff spot. And then, if Denver and Miami both manage to lose, that opens the door for Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. And the fun wrinkle there is they will have played their game on Saturday. If they manage to beat Pittsburgh, they just have to sit back and watch not 1, but 2 other games to see if Miami and Denver will let them into the playoffs. You got it? Does that all sound about right to you? Not too confusing? AFC North, number 7 seed. You got it? Great. Now that we've parsed through all the playoff implications, let's finish the Sunday 6 with a shout out to the young guys because, look, we've known that this was a loaded class of rookie receivers for a minute at this point. But even knowing that, week 17 was just an absolutely stupid day for the rookie pass catchers of this 2024 draft class. Receivers as well as tight ends, as you know, as we'll get to. But with those games, with these week 17 games in the books, 4 rookies have now reached 1,000 receiving yards this season. That is the most 1,000-yard seasons by rookie receivers in one season in NFL history. We've seen it. We've seen 3 a couple times in 2021 and in 2014. There were 3,000-yard rookies. 4 is unprecedented. Malik Neighbors, Brock Bowers, Brian Thomas Jr., Ladd McConkey, all over 1,000 yards, and they all did it with a week to play. And let's start with the guy who officially made history on Sunday in a win, no less. Brock Bowers has said many times this season wins would feel better than milestones. And with a win in New Orleans, Brock Bowers managed 7 catches for 77 receiving yards. He's now passed Mike Ditka for the most receiving yards by a tight end, a rookie tight end in NFL history, and a much more recent record. But why not pass Puka Nacua for the most catches by a rookie as well? He caught up with our Kristina Pink after the big day.
Okay, you heard that. Best tight end in the league. Listen, Brock, I got to read these off to you. Most receiving yards by a rookie tight end, most catches by a rookie in a single season, and most catches by any Raider in a single season. To set all of those records, to do everything you've done in this season and today, what's that mean to you?
I mean, it's awesome. I mean, never know what to expect coming to the next level, and I mean, it's been everything and more. I mean, it's been awesome, and so proud of the team too for the win. I mean, it's just been a rough season at the start, but I mean, we're got 2 in a row now.
Now, you told me before the game that this season's been shocking, the way you burst into the NFL. What's been the most shocking thing to you?
Oh man, I don't know. I mean, it's just it's football, but I mean, everyone's a little bigger, faster, stronger. So I mean, you're playing the NFL. I mean, what I dreamed of growing up and everything like that is pretty awesome.
You got fans that traveled to New Orleans with your high school jersey. They know your name. They've been chanting it. What has this season meant to you, and have these fans pour into you?
Man, best fans in the league. I mean, you see it. They turned out here in New Orleans, and I mean, they're just awesome. All of them. It's awesome.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Brock Bowers might have the records, but he's certainly not alone among this rookie class. As evidenced by Sunday, he might have had the quietest day of about half a dozen rookie pass catchers. A crazy day, a crazy season. Just run through it. Started off with the guy that's probably got the fewest number of eyeballs on him. I don't know how many people are paying close attention to the Jacksonville Jaguars, but Brian Thomas Jr. continues his tear. 7 catches for 91 yards and a touchdown in a win against the Titans on Sunday. He is now officially one of 4 rookies in the Super Bowl era to post over 1,100 receiving yards and 10 receiving touchdowns. The only other guys that have done this: Odell Beckham Jr., Jamar Chase, Randy Moss. That tells me 2 things. 1, LSU's just really good at putting amazing receivers in the league. Shameless self-promotion. And number 2, the guy is in incredible company. And it's interesting to note, interesting to remember, he's really caught on in the second half of the season. 572 yards in the last 6 weeks. He's gotten 50% of his production since mid-November, really catching on. 10 games with at least 75 receiving yards, breaks a tie for the most such games by a rookie in the Super Bowl era. Again, here's the company you're keeping: Justin Jefferson, Odell Beckham, Anquan Boldin, Terry Glenn. Not very many people paying close attention to the Jags, I would bet, but you should be paying attention to BTJ and what might be coming with his career. As long as we're talking about these LSU guys, we mentioned Malik Neighbors going off against the Giants. Goodness gracious. 7 for 171, 2 receiving touchdowns. He is now the 5th rookie in NFL history with 100 catches and 1,000 yards in a season. The others: Anquan Boldin, Jalen Waddle, Puka Nacua, Brock Bowers. I'm sensing a theme here. I mean, I'll get to it at the end though, because I'm just gonna keep going. Ladd McConkey, the 4th of the 1,000-yard rookies, 8 catches for 94 yards and 2 touchdowns in LA's demolition of the Patriots on Saturday. Ladd McConkey, 77 catches on 104 targets. He is accounting for 23% of the Chargers' targets and 25% of the Chargers' catches. As a rookie, he is the only consistent piece of that passing game as a rookie. Absolutely incredible. Maybe hasn't quite lived up to the lofty expectations, but a nice night for Marvin Harrison Jr. in the loss to the Rams on Saturday. 6 catches for 96 yards. It's his most catches and his most yards since October 27th. So hopefully ending the season on a positive note, although I'm going to step out on a limb and say 1,000 yards is probably unlikely. He's still 170-ish short with 1 game to play. Another guy worth mentioning, Xavier Worthy, 8 catches, 79 receiving yards, and a receiving touchdown against the Steelers on Christmas. Over the last 3 weeks, Xavier Worthy is averaging 10 touches per game with a touchdown in each of his last 3. Hollywood Brown's coming back, I know that, but Worthy very much developing into a key piece of the Chiefs offense at the right time. Keon Coleman, not the gaudiest day, 3 catches for 27 yards, but his touchdown, oh my gosh, plucking the ball out of the sky. That's why the Bills drafted him to play with Josh Allen. He has a touchdown in each of his last 3 games since missing time with an injury. Another guy that's rounding into form just in time for the playoffs. And one more for good measure, Jalen McMillan, the forgotten member of that loaded Washington receiving core. 5 catches for 51 yards and 2 touchdowns in the Bucs' big win against Carolina. Over the last month, Jalen McMillan, 19 catches for 242 yards and 6 touchdowns. He was forgotten about. He caught a touchdown in the season opener and was held off the score sheet for the next 2 months. But my goodness, is this guy developing into a playmaker. And that goes back to the point I said I was going to make. Listen, I am a friend of receivers. They are one of the most valuable positions in this league. The best ones can do a hell of a lot for you, but we are seeing this year after year. And if this is any indication, we're going to see it from a lot of guys, because what I just listed off 7, 8 different guys who are making major impacts for their teams, many of which are playoff caliber teams. I wonder where this leads. And at what point teams say a rookie that we can draft in the spring will be able to catch 60, 70, 80, 100 balls for us. And we don't need to pay 30, 35, $36 million to a star receiver. Again, that's not what I want to happen. I'm pro players getting paid, but you can't help but see this type of production year after year and not think that it's going somewhere. I do think there's some sort of breaking point coming where teams are more willing to take their chances with rookie contracts than pay for $35 million type of receivers. That's a problem for the offseason, though. Right now, so many fun young receivers. And like I just said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those guys making differences for playoff caliber teams. It's going to be an exciting month as these guys have a chance to continue elevating their game. What a season it's been. That does it for the show, but that doesn't do it for week 17. One more game to get to, the Lions facing the Niners on Monday night. We will be back Tuesday to recap that. Have our usual check-in with Jay Glazer for all the latest updates, news, insights coming out of the weekend. We got our power rankings to look forward to. One more show before week 18, and then we can really look forward to all the high stakes, all of the drama of the last week of the regular season. The new year, by the way, totally forgot about that. I don't know how we got here so fast, but we will do it justice. So much more to talk about on Tuesday and heading into week 18. Make sure you're subscribed if you're not. Go find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. We will be there to help you wrap up the season, as well as look forward to a fantastic playoff picture and the Super Bowl beyond. We got you covered right here. We'll talk to you soon. As always, I appreciate it.